in which human activity is having a permanent effect on the Earth's geology, ecosystems, and climate. It all links to these huge changes in the system processes of the Earth that have been brought about as a result of the ways that people go about their daily lives, from brushing their teeth in the morning to cooking their evening meal. While David Attenborough's Blue Planet 2 showed us how seriously plastics used in these everyday situations could affect the balance of life in the ocean, more and more evidence is appearing to suggest that these ideas of an Anthropocene and modern levels of plastic use are becoming ever more closely linked. Many people have realized that the mechanical breakdown of plastic debris in our oceans into microplastics can persist in the food chain and cause smaller species to suffer when they're ingested. But is this the true extent of the problems plastic cause in our watercourses? As the plastic litter is weathered and photodegraded by the UV light from the sun, any chemical additives to improve the characteristics of the products are released as the item is broken down into smaller and smaller pieces. These plasticizers, as they are known, can dissolve in the surrounding water to form a compound called leachate, which is toxic to the local marine life. A study by scientists at Stockholm University found that in very high concentrations, this leachate could kill all the organisms they tested, even in the case of biodegradable plastics. Some of you may be thinking, all right, this is happening far out at sea. Can it really affect my own personal plastic consumption, my own personal plastic use? The truth is that this process is happening here, close to our homes, and it may even affect our own health. How? As the landfill sites across the world are filled almost to their limits, combined with the brilliant British weather, this leachate can form in rainfall, flowing into our streams, rivers, lakes, ultimately the sources of our own drinking water. This process shows how plastic isn't just a problem by simply being there, floating on the ocean or sitting on a waste tip, but there are issues that can and will affect us that are caused chemically by the structure and composition of these plastics. The link between plastic waste and these ideas of an Anthropocene, however, extend far past the damage done to the natural environment, as modern levels of plastic use are even causing change in the Earth's geology. In the Hawaiian Islands, rocks have been discovered to be composed of a combination of organic material, sand, and volcanic rock, held together by hardened molten plastic. And sadly enough, some even to contain obvious toothbrush parts and bottle caps. It forms when the molten plastic passes into rocks and bubbles in the cracks and bubbles in the existing rock surface and solidifies, and evidence of which have been found right across the beach areas in these islands. These plastiglomerates, as they're known, are formed it's thought, as a result of campfires in these beach areas, where the plastic beach litter is most common. This explanation, however, would suggest that these plastiglomerates may be found right across the beach areas all over the world, especially as beach litter is becoming much more common on our shores. Now, these rocks, now that they're being formed, it's much more likely they'll become evident in the layers of rock that can help to identify different periods in geological history. Now that that's happening, it can really help to prove the presence of this Anthropocene. It provides a real indicator into the changes that humans are having on the physical landscape of the world. Furthermore, evidence of microplastics and fragments are now being observed in the Arctic ice cores, extracted to analyze how the polar regions, if not the whole Earth, have changed over the last 10,000 years. Do we really want this to be our legacy to the future generations of our time and our culture? It's also even suggested that there may be some future evidence of plastic material in the fossil record, again a gauge into the anthropogenic effects we have on our world. While our activities and overuse of these plastic products seem to have expanded to all aspects of the Earth's surface, we must also look at how they are changing the atmosphere. Plastic consumption requires huge drilling facilities to be set up. The transport of oil, its raw material, taken from beneath the Earth's surface, thousands of kilometers to reach the consumers, and then the production of these plastic products in the factories themselves. Each step in this process releasing huge quantities of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide traps the heat energy from the sun that's been reflected off the face of the Earth, warming the atmosphere and causing the current patterns in weather and climate to change. This change is so serious now that we're getting this close to plastic taking over the whole world. And although this is happening, this isn't the end to the effect that we're having just due to our plastic. In the ocean, a completely different process is taking place. Small organisms called plankton take in around 30% of the emitted carbon dioxide in the process of photosynthesis. This allows the ocean to act as a carbon sink, storing this carbon dioxide, but only as long as these plankton are consumed by predators and their carbon-rich remains deposited in the sediment of the seabed. The main predators in this process, the lanternfish, are very abundant in this ocean. But to them, the many millions of microplastic pieces in the ocean very much resemble these plankton in color and appearance. When these microplastics are ingested, the lanternfish can die due to intestinal blockage, which has led to starvation. This can break the cycle, stopping this carbon-rich waste from being deposited on the bottom of the ocean, and therefore allowing the levels of carbon dioxide again to rise. It's clear that human overuse of plastics in these now situations at this current time suggests that we are really having such a devastating impact of the Earth. But it's important to realize that we can't just move away from using this material. It's paved the way for new developments in hospital sterilizing equipment, safety equipment for sports people, athletes, construction workers, and a general new ease of life for everyone. However, it must be said that some changes do really need to be made in as many areas as possible to move towards a solution in helping stop these effects of all this harm that's occurring, all this persistence and all this change that's occurring to the face of our Earth. Thank you.